In this video, we'll be taking a look at the WYZE Cam V3 Pro that was just released on November 4th, 2022. If you're new to WYZE, we'll be taking a look at the history of the company and the history of their camera lineup from 2017 to present. We'll be going more in depth on the V3 Pro by doing an unboxing, going over the specs, the setup, and then finally running some tests and comparisons against the V3 with the Spotlight add-on. The reason we're doing it with the Spotlight add-on is because the V3 Pro actually features that Spotlight built in now. This will allow us to do an indoor and outdoor test with daytime and nighttime, and then we'll cover just the Spotlight, just the IR, and then finally just the color night vision. So who is WYZE? WYZE is a startup that was founded in 2017 by a group of Amazon employees in Seattle, Washington. They had the idea to provide cheap hardware and good software to gain market share very quickly and allow them to get outside investment to keep the company growing. In 2017, they launched the WYZE Cam V1, which included 14 days of cloud storage. And then in 2018, they launched the V2, which still had the cloud storage. And then in 2020, they launched the V3, which still had cloud storage. Now, during 2020, they faced some financial trouble and they have started to phase out the cloud recording. But the WYZE Cam V3 and below are still grandfathered in, so you can get WYZE Cam Plus Lite in order to have cloud recording on those devices. With the V3, you will need to have a Cam Plus subscription in order to have cloud recording. So now for a brief overview and comparison of the devices before we do the unboxing is that the WYZE Cam V3 Pro has a 2K image sensor, a second antenna for stronger Wi-Fi signal, and the Spotlight is now built into the device. Some of the drawbacks of this is now to add the Spotlight, they removed 4 of the infrared lights that were previously available on the V3. You no longer have cloud recording without paying for a subscription. And if you're going to swap out devices, all of these previous generation devices use a 1 amp adapter. You will need to also swap out the power adapter that is included in this box to the provided 2 amp adapter because the 1.2 gigahertz processor uses more power. So now for the unboxing. So inside my box, I do get an eye back to the WYZE Cam V3 Pro sticker, a quick start guide, this is the actual WYZE Cam V3 Pro. The USB cable is still micro USB. You still get the metal plate with the 3M sticker. The power adapter is now 5 volts and 2 amps. And you still get some mounting screws. Right away, I see a major difference between the Pro and the original V3 is the V3 added this pigtail that allowed the cable to be very protected from water. I'm a bit worried about this design because this is going back to how the V2s were, where you'd have to insert a cable directly into the back of the device. I'm worried that this won't be as waterproof as the V3. All right, now to set up this device, since I'm not near an electrical plug, I'm going to use this battery in order to power the device. We'll also use this battery to power both devices at the same time. We'll stack them on top of each other and make it to where we can have a good test. So you won't be doing this part, but I'm using a battery. So once the camera is plugged in, also be sure to remove the protective film on the front of the device. We'll open up the WYZE Cam app. If you don't already have an account, you'll need to make one, of course, but once you're into the app and logged in the top left, there's a plus icon. You go to Add Device, you'll go to Cameras, and there's one specifically for the WYZE Cam V3 Pro. From here you can follow the on-screen instructions, which are on the bottom of the device. You'll look for the setup button and press that button.
Ready to connect.
When you hear ready to connect, you'll hit the checkbox and hit next.
Ready to connect.
You'll need to choose your Wi-Fi network and put in your Wi-Fi password, then hit next. You'll get a QR code.
Ready to connect.
You'll want to point the camera at the QR code.
Ready to connect. QR code scanned. Please wait.
So now you'll check I heard QR code scanned and hit next. You can name your device. You can choose your purpose. There's essentially an ad for Cam Plus. You'll get a free 2-week trial. Hit continue. You can share this device with someone else by putting in their email address. We'll just hit maybe later for now. There's typically going to be a firmware update for the device, so always go ahead and do the firmware upgrade to start things out. You do not need to stay on that screen while the firmware updates, but do not power down the device. If you power down the device during a firmware upgrade, you'll need to get a micro SD card to reload the firmware manually, which is a pain. The firmware update was a success, so now we're ready to go. We're going to start out with some pretty unrealistic tests. This is outdoor at night with the spotlight from both cameras. Both spotlights are on at the same time, so it's providing a little bit more light, but all my floodlights and solar lights are off, and that's why you're seeing such green in these images. As we switch to infrared light, and again, both cameras have their IR on, so there is slightly more IR than usual. You can see that the image quality does improve over just the spotlights. But again, since all the floodlights and everything are off, the image could be better. You can notice immense detail in the leaves of the tree in the V3 Pro. Now both the IR and the spotlight are off, and all of the lights in my backyard are off, and there's like a whole bunch of trees behind me, so it's very dark. And again, it's 1:20 in the morning, and you'll see that the V3 Pro actually shuts off for a little bit and then starts recording again because it didn't even notice I was there. It's just so dark. So this is the worst case scenario. You know, it's unrealistic, but it's a good test. Now these are some more realistic tests. The floodlight is now on, my solar light is on, and you can see I'm carrying the dog, and I'm still a bit blurry as I go across the frames here. But the grass and the trees are very clear in the V3 Pro. And now I'm going to set down the dog and run. That's little Luna there. She's still a puppy, so she loves to run. Now we're outdoor in the daytime, and I run across the screen. And now this is just the V3 Pro. And now we'll switch back to the V3. I think in both instances here, the video was good enough. Now this is a kind of weird test. I set out the cans 1 foot apart. On the left side, they're all odd from 11 feet to 5 feet. Now on the right side, they're all on even from 10 feet to 4 feet. And I'm going a foot at a time, holding this Chipotle bag so you can kind of get an idea of the quality between the two cameras. I was going to provide more indoor video examples, but it seems like in the forums, most people are concerned about the outdoor image quality. So in this example, I'm going to cover my license plate, well, at least the first 3 characters, with a bag of Victor dog food to protect my privacy, but you'll see my last 4 digits of the license plate as I drive down the driveway and drive back up. It's important to note here that I'm using the WYZE Floodlight mounted on the right side of these images near the trash can, and the angle of that light is able to reflect off the license plate and allow both cameras to capture my license plate As I start to drive back up the driveway, I'm going to zoom in the image here so you can see that even at that far away, you can make out those numbers. It might be because I know those numbers, but as we drive up, at some point you can see those numbers. So yeah, the V3 Pro definitely makes the background darker as far as the trees compared to the V3. In this example, I turn off the WYZE Floodlight, and you'll see that this makes it very hard to see the license plate as I pull out. The V3 Pro spotlight turns on in this video and causes a glare on both cameras, but especially on the V3. And just pretty much the whole time you can't read the license plate. So it's important to set up your environment to be good for capturing video in any situation. So have more lights, don't just rely on the camera itself. Wrapping up today's video, here's a closer look at the testing rig from today. It was the V3 taped directly on top of the V3 Pro, and they were powered by the same USB power bank. The goal of taping them in this orientation was to try to provide the same viewing angle across all the previous videos that you just saw. And another thing about the videos that you just saw, they were all downloaded from the Android WYZE app Events History section. None of them were pulled from the SD card. And that comes to my number one gripe, is I think that the compression being used to store the files in the cloud could be improved to increase the final playback quality as we download these videos to view them if there ever were a scenario where we would need high quality video. Now, as far as my final recommendations and thoughts, do you upgrade from the V2 or the V3 to the V3 Pro? Well, it's probably going to come down to whether or not you want to pay for the Cam Plus subscription. If you want to stick with Cam Plus Lite, the V3 Pro is not for you. You'll have to stick with the V3 because that's the last generation that still supports the Cam Plus Lite plan. But if you're paying for the Cam Plus subscription, then you should definitely consider upgrading all the way to the V3 Pro because the image quality is excellent. And with that, if you have any comments or suggestions, please put them down in the comments box below, and thank you for watching.